Okay. All right. So today is January 17th, 2024, and I am here with Sonny Oram. Is that how I say your last name?
Yep.
Okay. To do an oral history. Okay. So first, Sonny, can you tell me like just about your background? Like where'd you grow up and where have you lived?
Yeah. So I grew up in Boston, and with the exception of college, which was in Ohio, I have lived in Boston my whole life. Great city. Um, so yeah, I guess that answers the first question.
Perfect. Yeah. And can you tell me about your educational background? And it could be either formal and also informal. Sometimes those are important to folks, those informal opportunities.
Yeah. Um, I went to Oberlin Conservatory for music, and
Cool.
yeah, I got into fashion after that. So
What type of music?
viola performance.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Very cool.
Uh,
And Oberlin's in Ohio.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's like, wow, impressive. And can you talk a little bit about your professional background?
Yeah. So when I was a musician in college, I took a class on um, what was it called? It was something. It was like marketing for musicians. That's what it was. And I loved the class. I just thought marketing was so fun. I got really into it. And so I decided that that's what I wanted to do. So I started doing music management. I brought on some of my friends and professors to manage them, set up their shows, set up their websites. I was just getting into web design. And I was thinking about things like branding and how to present them to the world. And it was a lot of fun. I worked with some of the big clients were Kathy Stewart, who's a Baroque flutist and was a professor at Oberlin at the time. She kind of took a chance on me, and that was awesome. And then the Lydian String Quartet at Brandeis hired me, so that was really great. And then I sort of switched directions. So I then got into fashion, and that's when I founded Qwear, Qwear Fashion. And then through that, I knew I wanted to keep doing things in marketing and communications. So I built up my skills with that and with freelance, and then eventually got hired at MIT. And that's where I work now. So I'm a communications officer at one of the centers at MIT.
Very cool. And what term do you use to describe your gender identity?
I use trans, non-binary. I sometimes use male depending on the context, though I don't really feel like a guy per se, but I sort of am. It depends. So yeah, those are the main words I use.
And which gender pronouns do you use?
I use he, they, or none, meaning like just repeating my name, which is what I always prefer in written contexts. But in speaking in shorthand, he or they is fine.
Which term would do you use to describe your sexual identity?
So queer, pansexual. I think those are the two main terms I use.
And how would you describe your personal clothing style?
So I would say it's very clean cut and preppy, and it can also be like urban street style, and then it can also just be like full out like faggy gay. Like I have this jacket that's made of sequins, and I like putting on lipstick and nail polish. Sometimes in the summer I'll wear like mesh tops. So yeah, a combination of those things.
And excuse me, can you tell me about your experience shopping for clothes or maybe just obtaining clothes? Sometimes we don't obtain clothing through actual purchasing. It could be other informal economy
Yeah.
type systems.
Yeah. So one of my early memories shopping for clothes was going with my mom and my grandma to get, they specifically wanted to get me a dress. And I hated all the dresses that we tried on. And they ended up just giving up and leaving and not getting me anything. And it was like super sad. So, um, but then things turned around when I grew up and well, the story might come later on. I don't know if I should tell it now, but
But if you feel like telling it, go right ahead and I will note, and then
okay.
I might follow up later with a question about what you said, or I might say, is there anything else to expand? So yeah, you just talk and I'll consider that when I ask questions.
Awesome. So, yeah, my whole life, people told me that I could only wear women's clothing, that men's clothing wouldn't fit me, that I would look ridiculous in it, that my hips were too big, all these things. Um, and like that was really upsetting to me because I hated women's clothes, like every single item in the women's department. Like I couldn't find a single thing that I felt would like, make me feel good. um, so yeah, so that was really hard for me and just left me feeling like not really in my body, kind of like I was floating outside of myself. And then this one day I was really struggling with depression, and I was just like wandering around aimlessly. I don't even know what I was doing. I was just like, I'm just gonna go. I was home from college. I was like, I'm just gonna go into Boston and just like go on a walk or something. And I was in the downtown crossing T station, and I was wandering by. I was wandering around, and there was this door that led from the T station into a department store, Macy's. And I was like, huh. It was kind of like this secret magic door. Like you wouldn't think it would be there. So I ended up going in, and it was the boys' department. It was like the guys' department, like 12 to 19 or whatever. And I was like really small at the time, and I did not fit into men's clothes. So, and it had never occurred to me to go into the boys' department. So I was like, huh. And there was no one there. So it was just me, and so I felt safe like trying things on and going into the dressing rooms even though the stall came up to here. And I tried on some shirts. It was just like basic t-shirts, some basic preppy things, and I just loved the way I looked. It made my chest look flat. I was standing up taller. I was like, this is me. I'm never wearing women's clothes again. Like, this is me. Now I know who I am. And that's when I started Qwear. So that's my story. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there anything else that would be important to know about your personal background or like your style in this context? We'll get into a lot of different questions, but anything else that's sticking out to you right now?
Hmm. I can't think of anything. I will add that when I was a kid, my friend and I used to make fashion magazines called Radical Fashion. And I can send you screenshots if you want. I have a lot of them. We would cut up fashion magazines, and then I would like write my own articles. And so that was pretty cool. And they were a lot of them were like parodies, and a lot of them were playing with gender. Like I would cut off a man's head and put it on a woman's body. And like it was like a way of exploring gender and also like consumerism.
I would love to see those.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
have them like right here. I can even just drop them in the chat because
Cool.
they're pretty fascinating actually. Like now that you know I'm trans, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So now I'm gonna move to Queer. So is that's how you would like me to pronounce it, Queer?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the mission of Queer?
So Queer's mission is to improve quality of life through gender expression.
And so so you told me about this moment shopping in the tea station, and there was a
Yeah.
door almost like the magic door to
Yeah, it was like the magic door.
and that's like when that kind of like led to Claire's development. But were you thinking about it beforehand, or when did you kind of begin thinking about it?
Not at all. It was so on a whim. Well, the seed was planted when I was in college because at Oberlin, everyone assigned female at birth had this ritual of shaving their heads when they came out as queer. And it was a big thing, and you like weren't seen as truly queer if you didn't do it. And I just didn't want to do it. And so I never felt connected to the queer community there. And I'm getting excited.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I should have waited until you were done
Oh
saying.
no, no, no. Yeah. So yeah, so back thinking, I was like, okay, so all these people must be like, not all of them want to do this. Like some of them must be kind of unhappy about this. Like, and so that got me thinking, like, are there other ways to signal to one another that we're queer, that we're part of a group through fashion that, that maybe gives you some more variety or some choice? And then I got to Boston, and the queer community there was like much more diverse in the way they dressed. And I was like, okay, so it is possible. Like, this is just a weird Oberlin thing. So that kind of planted the seed. And then when my friend was starting a fashion blog, I was like, what's that? And she was like, oh, a fashion blog, like you take pictures of yourself wearing clothes, and then companies start sending you free clothes, and it's awesome. And I was like, do they have queer ones? And she was like, well, I don't know. And I was like looking through, it was like all these like thin, cis, straight women. And they were like, I couldn't find, I mean, I'm sure there were like gay guys, but I didn't really see any like assigned female at birth queer fashion resources at all. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to start one. And then just like the next day, I started one, and that's how it happened.
In what year was that? Do you remember?
2011.
2011. Okay, I
So
thought it
yeah,
was
I was
2011.
22.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you tell me about the significance of the name or how you developed the name?
Yeah, so it started off, well, actually, when I first got the domain, I was like, lesbofashion.com. And then I was like, okay, this isn't for real. This is just like for now, and then I'll figure something out. So yeah. And then I was like talking to some people, and we came up with the idea Dyke Duds. and and so like that was the name for a few years, and then I started to transition, and I was like, oh, I don't really identify with that word anymore, and kind of want to expand to include more identities. So then I was just like brainstorming some ideas and came up with Qwear.
And can you tell me about your role in Queer? Like, what does a typical day or month look like when you're working on the platform?
Yeah, so I mean, it's changed a lot over the years. In 2014, I met my partner Rue, who is now a co-owner. So we own it together, make decisions together. It's great to not be the only one making decisions anymore. And so yeah, it's changed a lot. But when I first started, it was just a lot of work because I was on Tumblr, and people were asking me questions, and I wanted to do my best to answer all of them. So it was just a lot of computer time. I also had insomnia, so I worked on it a lot at night when I couldn't sleep, which kind of ended up being a blessing because like it might not be where it is now if I had been able to sleep all those nights. So yeah, but I always loved it. I mean, at times I got really frustrated, especially when I felt like no one's reading it, like you put in all this work into an article and it gets like 3 likes, and you're like, but I just something within me just knew I had to keep going despite all that. So yeah, at first it was like, 8 hours a day, like grinding away at it. Now I have other responsibilities, so I'm not spending as much time, but yeah, I'm still prioritizing it.
And who else contributes or participates? So you mentioned it. So your partner's name is Ray. Is that what you?
Rue,
Rue.
are
Okay, Rue.
you?
Sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. Rue.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
Rue
we've
is
had,
involved.
yeah, we've had a lot of contributors over the years. The main contributors right now are me, Rue, my photographer JPix, and this activist named Yasmin Benoit, who founded the "This Is What Asexual Looks Like" movement, and I will talk more about that, I'm sure.
And can you tell me about the model for Qwear? Like, how does it
Yeah.
work? And okay.
Yeah, so we have volunteers who produce content. So we produce a lot of the content ourselves, and we'll pull people in, say like we're looking for fat androgynous looks, and send us your thing, send us a paragraph, and that works really well because it gives people a structure. But we have a lot of contributors that will write articles and send us photos and things.
And I'm gonna stick in one question here. It's not on the list, but can you just tell me about Qwear? Like like it from your own perspective, like what is
Yeah,
it?
we
And
describe Qwear as a queer fashion incubator because it's a space where people can come to explore their style. It's like a safe space. And I think a lot of styles have become popularized on the platform. So yeah, it's an incubator. It's a space to explore and to be yourself, and it's open to everyone. You don't have to identify as queer to see yourself in that space.
And what are some examples of how folks might explore? Like what when they go to Qwear, like what are they going to see or experience when they click on it?
So they'll see the most recent articles and they can search, and there are keywords at the bottom that they can click on and see more things in those areas, like the most popular search terms like weddings and different types of identities and swimwear. Um, and then there's an outfits page that has just a display of outfits from all these different articles where you can go through and click on them and see more photos. So it's really meant to be like a source of hopefully endless inspiration so that people can find a style that resonates with them.
And can the folks who are engaging, can they participate in any way? Like, do they have abilities to comment or ask questions? Like, how does that interaction kind of work?
Yeah, you can comment, you can submit a question, which we call queries. You can submit an article, you can submit photos. So yeah, we try to make it as open as possible so that it's like a community space, and there's not really a barrier to like seeing yourself in that space.
And what's one of your favorite queries that came through?
Oh, I love the queries that come from kids, like middle schoolers who are trying to figure themselves out, and it just it's just really meaningful to me because I know that for a lot of these people, we're like the only source they have. Like they could be in the middle of nowhere, they could know no queer people at all, and they just like Googled something and found us, and yeah. So we had we had a recent question from a middle schooler who was like bi and who like came out as bi and wanted to figure out how to dress, and I actually brought on this I don't know if you know Desmond is Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're like a drag, yeah,
Yes.
drag performer kid
Yeah.
I'm not sure how old they are now, but I think like around the middle school age. So they answered the question, and that was like a really beautiful thing to facilitate. I can send you a link to that one too if you're interested.
Yeah, I would love to see that one. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Desmond's often on my reels, or on my,
Yeah.
you know, whatever whenever I'm scrolling. Like
Yeah.
who knows on
Yeah,
what.
they're quite active on the internet.
Yeah, yeah. And then can you tell me about how Queer has has evolved over time?
Yeah.
What it's
So
looked like in different stages.
yeah, let's see. I guess the way it evolved the most is that it's become more inclusive over time. Um, well, for one thing, it's a lot easier to find people now. Like on Instagram, we didn't really have
Mm.
Instagram when it started, so I was just on Tumblr, and I there was a big community of people in queer fashion there, but it was like if you wanted to have more plus size or more people of color, that was more of a challenge. Um, so I think over time it's become much more inclusive, and that's also something that my partner Rue helped with greatly um, when he came on.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's mostly, and also at first it wasn't really a space. Cis men were kind of excluded. It was like anyone who's queer but not a cis guy. And then I realized that there was no need for that. That it should be for everyone.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I had right reasons for doing it at the beginning because I felt like cis gay men were like monopolizing the fashion space,
Hmm.
and I wanted like space for everyone else. But
Hmm.
then at the same time, there are so many cis gay men who like don't fit into that mold too, and who need that space. And so yeah, pretty like around 2013, I'd say I dropped that and just made it open to everyone.
Hmm. How did you
Yeah.
indicate that it was closed to so-called closed to them?
I just in the description of who we were, I would say like we are a space for X, Y, and Z.
Got it. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And how do you see it evolving in the future? How would you want it to evolve in the future?
Hmm. I mean, I would love to get funding so that we can create more content
Hmm.
and just put more content out there and document more of the queer fashion in the world because it's so beautiful and there's so much to photograph, and
Hmm.
we just don't have the resources to do a lot of that. So yeah, if we got funding someday, it could be amazing. There's so much we could do.
And so do you do like advertise? You probably know more about this than me, but like do you have any source of funding right now, like advertising or anything that generates income? Or
Yeah, well, the a little bit. Sometimes people will sponsor
got
content.
it.
Um, yeah, a while ago we had a sponsorship with actually, well, they're a bad company now, so maybe I won't talk about them.
No, you don't even have to.
But yeah, we have had companies sponsor us in the past,
Mhm.
but we're mostly like just self-sustaining. We do have a Patreon though, if
Oh,
anyone wants to contribute.
of
It's a
course,
big
yes.
yes.
And you talked a little bit about this, like the outputs for Qwear, but anything else to add beyond what you already described, like things that you all produce and put out into the world?
Yeah, well, we have one t-shirt in our store right now with the queer
I see.
logo on it, and we would
Yes, that's
love
the
to.
one that you're wearing in the picture.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, we would love to expand that as well, but again, it's funding.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And Whoa. Okay, so I think you already answered. I asked, what would you what would you like to do, but you're not quite there yet. Is there, I guess, maybe I will ask, is there anything else, um, any other kinds of outputs or content or products that you would like to put out that you're just not quite there yet?
Um, I mean, if we had the funding, I would love to make more videos. I would love to travel more places and take more photos. Um, so yeah, we're doing what we can.
Mhm, mhm. And who are your readers or or your engagers? Like who engages with you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say like really queer people across all ages
Mhm,
and around the world
mhm, mhm,
engage with us. So
mhm,
that's been really awesome just to see like the diversity of our readers.
mhm. And how do you think folks find out about Queer?
I think they Google us. So I did a lot of SEO activism,
Mhm,
which I don't know if that's actually a term, but if it's not, I'm making it one. Because what I would do was Google like androgynous style, and every single picture that came up was a thin, white, female assigned at birth person
mhm,
wearing guys' clothes. So it was like everyone thought that if you didn't look like that, there was no way you could be androgynous, which is just so sad. So I started creating content with androgynous people who look different and using those terms. So now when you Google androgynous style, you get a much wider variety of results. Um, I totally forgot what the question was.
Oh, it was what was the question? Oh, how do you think folks find out about you?
Oh yeah, yeah. So
Google.
so I think people Google like what do I wear to a gay wedding or something. They Google things like that and find us. And they also find us on social media, just I'm sure the algorithm bringing up our photos as things they might like.
And what types of feedback do you get related to Queer?
When I first started, I got a lot of feedback because I was new and there were a lot of things about the LGBTQ community that fell outside of my own experience that I didn't know. And so I got a lot of feedback. Some of it was quite negative,
Mhm,
and I took it seriously and made some changes. And I realized that, like, unless you explicitly make it clear that you want to represent a group, if they've been historically excluded, they're going to assume that you're excluding them. So you have to make an extra effort to include them. So that was something I learned,
mhm,
that like you need to have these marginalized groups represented in every article and on every page of the website.
mhm.
So yeah, once I realized that, it made it a lot easier to run. And frankly, I haven't really gotten any negative feedback in a really long time, like years and years, because I kind of figured out what people wanted from that early feedback.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
And what's an example of really great positive feedback you've received?
I've had people tell me that the website like saved the life of someone they knew.
Mhm,
Like, oh, this my boyfriend was suicidal and you saved his life, or my friend, or yeah. So that's just so amazing, and that just makes all the work worth it. Like, I don't care if only one person read that article, but it saved their life, then I did my job.
and what are you most proud of so far?
Oh wow. I guess I'm proud that we've kept it up this long, because it's been like almost 12 years now, 11 and a half years, which is amazing. And I just, I, excuse me, I never thought that something I started when I was 22, started it on a whim, had no idea where it was going to go. I had no real plans for it. I was just kind of just messing around. And just the fact that we've been able to keep it going, um, I'm really proud of that. Yeah.
And what do you think has been most successful so far?
Well, there's this movement that we helped launch, which is the This Is What Asexual Looks Like movement. And that's one of our biggest successes because Yasmin Benoit, the activist who founded it and first published the first use of it on Qwear, has like her career has just, I mean, she was already successful, but her career just like took off even more after that movement. And she's like she's doing so much amazing work for the asexual movement. And I just see her picture everywhere in magazines, and it's just so cool. So yeah, that um that movement that we helped launch, that's like exactly what we're about, like an incubator to launch movements. So that, because like Yasmin was just someone who came to me with saying like, I want to promote asexual visibility. And I was like, great, what do we want to do? And I like helped her figure out. And I was like, you need to come up with a hashtag, like you need to go viral. And it was just really cool to be able to like see that happen. So yeah, that was huge. I think another huge success for me is that when you Google androgynous style, now there are plus size people in the results. And I just think that is changing so many lives, because like so many kids every day are Googling, how do I dress androgynous? And if they don't see their body type uh, represented, they're just going to give up and think they can't do it. And that's so sad. And I think everyone should be able to dress however they want. And so yeah, that's been really meaningful to me, that I could actually like change those search results. And yeah.
And were there any initial aspects when you started the platform that surprised you?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't realize how vast the LGBTQIA community is, like how varying the experiences are. Of course, I think everyone has this, where we have our own life and our own experience, and we kind of assume that everyone else is sort of similar to that, because we just don't know. Like you can't know what you don't know. So a lot of it has been a learning experience for me, because I was like, oh wow, I didn't know there were queer people with that, I didn't know that there were trans people who didn't experience dysphoria, like just so many things I didn't know. um and yeah, like, so I mean, some of the issues that trans women have to deal with, particularly trans women of color, with the murder epidemic, and those were things that weren't really on my radar when I started it. Because as a white person, I'm pretty safe. So yeah, I just learned so much from the community, and it's just an honor to be able to run a platform, with where people are relying on us for, like, for some people we're really all they have. And at first I was angry that people were expecting so much of me, because like they had no idea I was just a 22-year-old kid just like blogging in my room. Like they thought we were like company or something, because we were doing, I was like I was like kind of killing it. So they thought I was like multiple people, I guess, at first, who were older. But yeah, I was like, I'm just a kid. Why are you yelling at me? But I realized that like this is all people have. And now that I've like stepped up to the plate, I have to deliver and I have this responsibility now. So yeah, I think I've like wandered off from the question, but yeah, there have been a lot of surprises, a lot of lessons learned,
Hmm.
and it's an honor to still be in the position of running the platform.
And can you, are there any struggles that you've experienced? And if yes, like, can you describe some of those with with running the platform or anything related to it?
I think one of the biggest struggles probably is being white, because our platform has become a safe space for people of color in particular. I think because other queer fashion platforms out there maybe aren't as don't put in the effort to
Mhm.
be that inclusive. So that really happened when I brought Rue on, and Rue's POC,
Mhm.
and taught me a lot about how to create a safe space. And
Mhm.
there's certain things I just wouldn't know because I just wouldn't experience as a white person, and I just don't know what people are going through. I don't know what's going to make them feel safe or not safe. I don't necessarily know about the subtleties of the things going on within different communities and different cultural things. So Rue really like just made the platform a so much more amazing space by teaching me all these things, and we were able to make it an even like more safe space for people. So yeah, I think like the biggest barrier for me is that like when you are privileged, it can be great because it can allow you to do things. Like it gave me the opportunity to start this platform, instead of like working three jobs to support myself. Like so, because I started it when I was living at my parents' house after college, so I had some wiggle room to like to find myself,
Mhm.
figure out what I wanted to do, prepare for my career. So like that was a huge privilege, and I'm glad that I could use that for good to give back. But it also like blocks you from seeing a lot of what's going on in the world. Bless you.
Thanks.
So yeah.
And we talked about funding earlier. Is there anything else to add about like funding or sponsorship related to Queer?
I don't think I have anything to add really.
Okay. And you talk, you've already talked too about intersectionality. Is there anything else to add about like how you think through? I feel really saturated on that, but is there anything else to add about intersectionality and the platform and like how you think about it or
I guess like my my advice to people doing similar things is you have to really go out and find people, like because at first we were just like I was just expecting people to submit to us, and then whoever submitted got featured, and I couldn't control who submitted and who didn't. So when people started complaining that there were like three white people in a row or whatever, I'd be like, well, it's not my fault. Like, if you want to see yourself on here, submit. But no, actually, it is my responsibility. So that's something I grew into where I was like, no, like I actually am in a position of power right now leading this platform. I didn't realize it at the time, again, because I was only 22 and I didn't feel very powerful, but I was. So I had to go out there and find people to, and I had to, if someone submitted and there were already like a million people who looked like them, I had to tell them no. So yeah, yeah, go out there and find people, and they are out there. You just have to put in a little extra effort sometimes because they're not always going to come to you because they might assume that they're not going to be welcome.
Mhm.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and then do you think about like, of course, there's like social justice issues. Do you think about environmental justice, sustainability? Of course, you're a digital platform, but
Yeah. Yeah. So we try to uh discuss as many social issues as we can through the lens of fashion.
Mhm.
And environmentally, we so fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world. I'm sure you know. So we really try to be aware of that and not encourage people to buy new things. Like most fashion resources is like buy this, buy that.
Mhm.
And we're showcasing outfits that were made through a variety of ways. Some things were bought, some things were like taken out of their brother's closet, you know. Some things were like a hand me down from an ex, you know. Like there are just so many ways to obtain clothing. So we really try to stay away from like telling people to buy things and try to encourage people to have like a good capsule wardrobe that they can accessorize all these different ways.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. Like, because
Yeah,
it is a really terrible industry.
it's
Like
just terrible.
it's
It's so
yeah,
wasteful.
it's so bad. It's so bad.
The waste created, like the waste used to create the clothes, and then the fact that the clothes like get thrown out 2 weeks later, like
Yes.
it's just disgusting.
It's horrifying. It is
Yeah,
literally
it is horrifying for sure. Yeah,
horrifying.
but at the same time, I should add to this. So a lot of our readers are low income, so they can't afford to spend a little extra on clothing that was made in an eco-friendly way, and we do not want to alienate anyone.
Mhm.
So we will never say like we'll never shame anyone for where they shop. So
Mhm.
like someone can come in with an outfit from Walmart and Old Navy and H&M, and we will share that outfit because for some people that's the only clothes they can access. So you got to work with what you have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You are so thoughtful. I can't.
Thank you. I try to be. You know, there's so many things you have to consider when
Yes.
doing things
Yes.
like this. So many intersecting
Yes.
issues.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, Walmart's terrible, but also it's an option and sometimes the only option. And sometimes like in like places where there's like,
Yeah.
there's not places to shop, and
Right.
they don't have time to return things online. It's just like even getting
Yeah.
to the return place, I'm like, some people like the bus fare. That's like that's
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
I'm like, it's not like, oh, just return it. I'm like, no, no, that's like not how this works. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
and then, so you talked a lot about like a community and like involvement in communities. Anything else to talk about in relation to like community outreach or engagement or things related to like building communities?
Yeah. So we have done a lot of outreach. We've gone to schools and talked about queerness and fashion and all that. I kind of see the whole platform as a community outreach project.
Hmm.
So yeah, I can't necessarily point to one thing,
Hmm.
but I think that it's been like we have a queer the people that we work with, we've really, I think, built a community with them as well.
Hmm.
And like it's rewarding to see people forming friendships through Qwear.
Oh, can you talk about some of the in-person things that you've done?
Yes.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit? Like what have
Yeah. So when Rue came on, we started doing fashion shows. And so Rue is a graduate of RISD and um had this really and has worked in the fashion industry before, and knows how it works, where basically you have all of your clothes, there are like a size for or whatever, and then you pick models to suit that clothing. So Rue wanted to do it the opposite way. He wanted to have the models come in, and then we design the outfits around the models and their gender expression. So yeah, like the first fashion show we did was in Oakland. It was Queer Fashion Week, and we flew out there with a suitcase of random clothes, and and Rue was like, we're not going to have any white models, no white models. It's going to be all models of color. But then we let our friend Alexis in because she's cool. So we had one. But yeah, it was just really like it was just meant to like subvert the norm. So we had everyone trying on oh my god, hilarious side note. One of the people we became friends with there like didn't know I was trans and thought that we were just a straight couple and was like, why are they doing queer fashion week? We cleared that up later. So yeah, we just like had models try on clothing, talk about what they wanted to wear, and then Ruth spent 3 days in our hotel room like adapting the clothes and sewing things and creating new outfits out of them, and then went back the morning of the fashion show, like put it on people. They were like trying them on, making last minute adjustments, and yeah, so that's how Rue does it. It's pretty brilliant. I've seen the process now like 5 times. We did a couple shows at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston. Um, and
The MFA Boston, or no? Maybe that. Maybe.
no, it was the yeah, different
Oh,
museum,
okay.
the
Yeah. Sorry, I
IPA.
thought I saw that online, but I must have
Yeah,
missed.
Dapper Q did something with the MFA.
Oh, okay. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. Um, yeah, and let's see, we did Rainbow Fashion Week in New York, and
Mhm,
then over COVID, oh, and we did the Boston University Art Galleries. We did a show there that was really cool.
mhm.
And then over COVID, we made a virtual fashion show where people sent us videos of them like walking down the runway, like either in their house or outside or something, and then I just strung it all together.
Mhm.
um so that was really cool. So a really cool way to bring the community together.
Yeah, that is so cool. I didn't. I read about them. I read about some of the in-person stuff online, but
Yeah.
I didn't. That is really cool. Um, what did they study at RISD? Fashion?
Printmaking.
Oh, printmaking. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah, but at RISD they like you have to learn everything.
Yeah,
So
the foundational. Yeah, yep.
yeah. So they came away with like yeah, good knowledge on how to do everything.
Yeah, you guys are a talent. You're like going to be very talent, like artists, like really.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just
wow, you guys are impressive.
when we met, we were like, yes. It was quite exciting.
And then, is there anything else that would be important to know about Qwear, your background, or your story, or the story of Qwear?
Let me check my notes here. Oh, I'm so glad I wrote this down. So one thing I wanted to make sure I touch upon was that we are the first space to talk about queer fashion as a health issue.
Mm.
Um, and I think this is really important because, like, I mean, for me, I was really depressed before I started dressing the way I wanted to, and it was just a big life changer. And I know that that's the case for a lot of people. And I think that fashion, especially for queer people, is like a component of health. And I think that every doctor should have a rack of donated clothes in their office for people to try on. And this is true for people who are like considering transitioning, but it's also true for people who just aren't really sure who they are yet. Like you can be not trans but still need fashion to express yourself. But like if you are looking at it from a trans lens, it's like now we call it socially transitioning as a part of the medical process
Mhm.
of changing your clothes. Yeah. So I think like before a lot of trans surgeries were approved by insurance,
Mhm.
fashion was all people had. So it was like really vital. And we were like the only people talking about that and naming that. So yeah, I really wanted to bring attention to that fashion is health. It
Mhm.
is not just some frivolous fun thing. It is for queer people. It is our health, and it's our ability to move about the world safely, our ability to get jobs, our ability to basically do anything.
Mhm.
So yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to share?
Um, I'll tell you one more quick story.
Yeah, yeah, please.
So when it's a shout out to my dad. When I was in middle school, there was one day before Christmas break when they showed us movies all day long in school, and I got really mad because I was like really bored. Well, first of all, I'm Jewish, so I didn't really know. I didn't really understand what was going on. Like I didn't know what the Grinch was. It didn't resonate with me, so I just couldn't really relate to the movies. So I got home and complained, and my dad was like, "You should write a letter to the local newspaper." And so I did. And it unfortunately backfired
No.
because I didn't think that any of the kids were reading the newspaper, but their parents were. And they told my classmates about it. And then they got like super anti Semitic. And they were like, well, just because you hate Christmas doesn't mean you have to take away the fun for the rest of us. And I was like, so, but even though it backfired, it taught me a very important lesson that when there's something that you think should change, no one's going to do it for you. You have to use your voice to make that change happen. And I think my dad is an activist. He goes to protests all the time. His mom, my grandma, was an activist too, and I think it was really passed down to me that message of like make the change that you want to happen.
Mhm,
And I think it was with that attitude that I thought that I could, do Qwear and actually make a difference.
mhm, mhm.
And also, to my credit, they did not show movies all day next year.
Yeah, I love
So,
that.